always the one. You, what we've been through, I miss you. And you can't lie, you miss me too. If I roll through, but you...
In today's video, I'm going to be getting into my Aaliyah book a little bit because I started reading it. And I want to share a little bit of information that I've read already, not even beginning any of the chapters in this book. I'm still at the author's note in the beginning of this book, and I already read so much already. What I was reading is not even about Aaliyah. It's about Ciara and Robert. Crazy, right? I thought this book was just supposed to be about Aaliyah, not anyone else. But I ain't complaining. It's best of both worlds. And I can't wait to actually get into the chapter. So without further more to say, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your bell post notifications so that you'll be notified every time I drop a video. Let's get into today's video. So if you don't know, this book is by this woman right here. Funny story, she actually sent me one of her book savers in the mail of Aaliyah. She even signed it. And she's been around a lot of celebrities, including Jay-Z. Anyways, let's get into it. So like I said, this is the author's note. This is not a chapter yet. This is in the beginning of the book. I will never forget the day I interviewed a then teenage Ciara for her 2004 debut album, Goodies. On the album is a cut called Next to You featuring Robert, which he also wrote and produced. The lyrics place Ciara in the position of coaxing Robert into letting her stay the night. I noted in my feature how Robert's lyrics written for teenagers were, as 2 years prior his has surfaced. It boggled my mind how he could continue writing songs like this for young women and be so well compensated to do so. Members of Ciara's team contacted both my editor and me with slander. She's not Aaliyah, was their point, but Ciara could have been. My remarks weren't even against Ciara. She is incredibly talented and one of the torchbearers of Aaliyah's legacy. But the mention of Aaliyah by her team as if it was a mark of shame felt so wrong since the blame was again placed upon the teenage girl and not the... And while no one really understood what happened between him and Aaliyah back then, I still felt it was an unfair burden to place on someone who was no longer to defend herself. And I just want to state that around 2004, Ciara would have been 19 or around 19, and I would have been around 37. Ciara never knew this exchange existed. She always held Aaliyah's name in the highest regard, considering Ciara and many artists who followed were undoubtedly inspired by Aaliyah's work. This wasn't the first time that Ciara would be compared to Aaliyah in some way. And years after the magazine article in 2019, Ciara put her Robert collaborations from streaming services. I called that a tiny, delayed victory. I watched Lifetime's Surviving Robert Part 1 and 2 series with unease. A decade and a half following my article, wondering how his predilection for young girls have fallen under the radar for so long. I grimaced as young girls were held hostage, their families telling horror stories of their daughters still being in his clutches, while others who managed to escape revealed what they endured with disturbing detail. You could see the torture on many of the girls' faces, and others you could see blankness and reprogramming. As a viewer, there's an inherent fear for what their post-traumatic futures will look like once they've inevitably realized they're in a holding pattern. Like everyone else, however, I too was separating Aaliyah from Robert. I was categorizing her the way the media and the music industry had done so often in the past, by viewing the relationship as a mutually loving one, not one rooting in Latin. Patterns don't discriminate. Prey is prey, and Aaliyah had fallen prey to Robert. He was just as damaging a force in Aaliyah's life as he was to the other very young women Theirs wasn't a love story that defined age. It was a tragedy that Aaliyah endured and somehow moved past to become an icon in her own right without him. That is the only reason why Robert is discussed in this book. It was only in watching this docuseries and dissecting newfound evidence that I realized that disregarding Robert's chapter in Aaliyah's life would be denying Aaliyah another title she greatly deserved: Survivor. Now, like I said, I thought this was just supposed to be about Aaliyah. And she ended up mentioning Ciara and what Ciara went through or almost went through with him. Now they do have a whole song together, which I did not know that. You can learn a lot. I have faith in this woman who wrote this book. This book is going to be really good. And just to hear this little information, I'm to dig into more of it. I don't ever think I've heard of Ciara working with Robert. I don't know if I did or not, but this is all new to me. This is definitely more information than I knew, and I'm very invested. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be talking any more of Ciara and Robert. There's really not anything on the internet. Clearly, Ciara's team set her up with him even after they knew what he had done in the past, especially to well-known singer Aaliyah, and then them trying to this author out of shame. Clearly it was out of shame because they know what they were trying to do. And personally, I feel like if no one would have caught on to what he was doing to other young women, I think they would have kept that song up. They would have promoted it. They would have continued to let young Ciara work with him. And that's just how sick the industry is. It's not just the industry, the Illuminati, it's the record labels as well. They like that type of situation where there's a teenager in a mix of adults, and that's just how it always is. It's always a young individual around adults or getting into a situation with adults, and Aaliyah is number one that came out in the media. For them to ignore that and to push a 19-year-old Ciara to still work with him is really crazy. In 2004 all the way to 2019, she ends up removing it from streaming platforms after everything came out. Should you really blame her? I think so. That's many years later. And for her to have continued to let that song stay on streaming platforms, knowing what he did, I'm sure she had a clue what was going on between Aaliyah and Robert. But for her to wait so long to take it off streaming platforms, that's really weird. And it kind of sounds like a lot of situations that have been done with Robert, like Jay-Z. He was touring with him, making music, and then as soon as these allegations came out and these women came out against Robert, he was no longer working with him. And yes, I do know that 19 is of age. Once you turn 18, you are legal. But for a 19-year-old to be singing towards a 37-year-old, that's really ridiculous. A lot of people might say age is just a number. Even our favorite singer was saying that. Although I think those are the words of Robert, it doesn't make it right. Aaliyah was too young. Ciara was too young. At the end of the day, you have to blame Robert. You have to blame the parents, even Aaliyah's parents, because everything that was going on had to be peeped. A lot of people, a lot of the adults around already knew. And that's why they could tell their story from back then so clearly today. And to know that Ciara was almost an Aaliyah, that easily could have been avoided from day one. Although she didn't make it that far, but she still has a song with him, which doesn't make it right. And the lyrics, I went to the song, the lyrics is just like Aaliyah's music. In the song, I didn't listen to it, I just read the lyrics, but that was all I needed to do. What Robert does is he will write a song for someone that young, or he was writing music for youngins, and he was writing it to make it seem like the youngins, the teenagers, were trying to get at him. In all reality, those were his words towards them. But then in the end, they were just looking at the music and they were like, oh, well, it's the girls who are trying to be adults and trying to do adult things because they're singing towards him. He wrote and produced, you know what I'm saying? And it's sad that he manipulated them like that, and he set them up to be targeted so he would be in the clear. And for him to be in the clear so long, for years, is really wild. I mean, it just happened with so many women. He targeted so many young women. And I feel like a lot of people don't like when I say this, but I feel like personally, those teenagers, although it is illegal, I felt like those teenagers did like what was going on and they had no problem with it at all. I feel like Aaliyah did cherish that relationship. She loved everything that was going on. She was young. It shouldn't have happened. She was way too young. Her parents need to be in trouble. But I feel like she was young. She thought it was cool to be with a older guy at a young age. And I feel like Ciara, she didn't care either. And even if Ciara was okay with working with him, personally I feel like it was only because She was just starting off in her career. I feel like artists, they live a crazy life. They want to do everything. They get into drama because they know they can. They just want to live that famous life. I feel like, personally, if she was okay with it, I'm sure she heard about it. It's just because she wanted to, you know what I'm saying, probably have that success Aaliyah gained from Robert. A lot of people was gonna try to use him for their career like Aaliyah did. Aaliyah prospered from Robert, but she beat it too. She almost lost her career, but she beat it. Yeah, I personally just think that a lot of people just, they don't care. Robert was really successful. They wanted to build a career off of him. No matter what he did, you know what I'm saying? They was just setting that to the side and just handling business, which that's understandable. But teenagers, it's no wonder why her team was trying to sue this lady, because they knew they were wrong. They knew the guilt. She was too young to be working with Robert, especially after everything he did. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think, because this book getting good and I haven't even got to the chapters yet. That's really crazy though. But you guys let me know what you think about this. I'm definitely going to be getting into this book more. I'll update y'all on what I find. So stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Don't mind the voice in the background.
Do you remember that one night when we fell in love? What we had felt so right.